I'm Dana Wolf-Neymark with Children's Action Alliance, and we're an independent voice for children and families throughout Arizona. We're a voice at the state capitol and here in this community and in communities throughout the state. We're thrilled to be here tonight with many partners, and when you get a chance after the forum is over, I invite you to visit the displays around the room. These are partners who are doing work every single day here in Yuma with children and families, and their work means so much. And they're here with us to connect you, the voters, with the candidates running to represent you, and we greatly appreciate the partnership. I want to remind you, if you just arrived, we have index cards. We invite you to write down your questions, and I will just wave your hand in the air if you've got a question, and I'll come collect it. And we won't get a chance to answer all of them, but we will get to some of them, so we encourage you to participate. I also want to remind you that tonight at midnight is the deadline to register to vote for this primary election, which is August 28th. So you still have time when you leave tonight. If you're not registered, you can register online up until midnight tonight. We also have registration forms at the table in the back, which you could use for the general election. So please remember to register, get an early ballot, and make sure to vote in the primary and in the general election. And now I would like to welcome back Michelle Faust.
Hello and welcome. I'd like to welcome anyone who's just joined us, and thank you to all of you who've come back and stayed with us. If you have not done so already, please turn off your cell phones or silence them. Probably silence them, because we will be allowing you to send your questions via Twitter if you need to use that. We'd like to ask you to show respect to all of the candidates and keep your questions to the 3x5 cards that we are providing. Keep your applause until the end. Due to our time constraints, I will not be able to ask all audience questions, but I do encourage you to take advantage of the opportunity to take the 3x5 cards that are provided by our volunteers to write down any questions that you might have for the candidates, and I will be happy to ask them. You can also tweet your questions to hashtag LD4Yuma, and those will be also provided for me to ask those questions for you. So we're going to get ready to begin our debate right now. For the House seats from District 4, this debate will be the same as the first one. Before we get started, I would like to recognize that we have in our audience Lynn Pancrazzi, who is going to be running for the Senate Democratic candidate for this district. Our Democratic candidates are Juan Carlos Escamilla, we have Charlene Fernandez, and Lisa Otondo. We still have our timer in the front row who will hold up a red folder when candidates' times are up, and when they have just a little bit of time left, they will get the yellow card so they can get started. We are going to start by asking questions of Lisa Otondo. You got drawn first out of the hat. And I'll ask the same question that I started out with Russ. Please tell us two things that your voters should know about you.
First of all, I'd like to start out by saying thank you to the Children's Action Alliance. I'm really excited to be here. I watch Dana on Horizon on PBS all the time, a strong voice for children's issues. Two things that you should know about me. First of all, I have a wonderful education. My master's degree is in international public administration with an emphasis on women and children's issues. So I think that's really important when you look at me as a candidate. You're really going to know what I'm about when you look at my educational background. My bachelor's is in international policy studies, so legislature, laws, international policy, and national policy have always been of interest to me. The second thing I think you should know about me is I come from a close-knit farming family. I'm a Yuma girl, and I am proud to be from Yuma. I come from a bipartisan household. My mother was a Democrat, my father Republican, and civil political discourse has been a part of my life, all of my life. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Charlene Fernandez, would you please give us a quick introduction to yourself?
Hi, thank you for having me here today. My name is Charlene Fernandez. Two things that I'd like you to know about me is, number one, that I'm a huge advocate for education. My degree is in elementary education, and my education foundation was built here in Yuma County. I'm fifth generation, born and raised here in Yuma County, and I've lived here 57 years and 5 months consecutively. I haven't left. This new district that has been created here, District 4, which we're running for, came to us. I didn't move into this district. I was born and raised into this district. And the other thing that maybe you might want to know about me is that I've worked several years, 13 plus years, as a congressional staffer for 2 members of Congress. So a lot of you out there know about me, already know me, because I've been out in the community for the past 18 years.
And Juan Carlos Escamilla, would you please take a moment to tell us 2 things that are important that the audience knows about you?
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm Juan Carlos Escamilla. I was born and raised in Yakima, Washington. My parents were farm workers that would follow the harvest season, and that's how we commuted back and forth from Washington to Arizona. And I got young at a very young age. I was 17 years old, and that's why I stayed behind. And I've been here in Arizona for over 25 years now. This is my home. This is where my children were born. And I love this great country. I love the city and the community that I grew up in. I served as mayor for 6 years. I've been in the council for another 4 years, so I've been in office for a total of 11 years. I got first elected when I was only 20 years old, and I am very proud to be able to accomplish the things that we've done in San Luis, Arizona. For those that do not know San Luis, Arizona, we've always called our politics down there a contact sport, and I think I've been able to gain the respect from my colleagues because I'm a person that is able to sit and discuss the issues no matter what party it is, no matter what differences we might have, but we've always worked together to try to make sure to improve the quality lives of our citizens. I am running for this new district, District Number 4, which I believe really paints a true portrait of what I've always represented, which is rural Arizona. If you were to compare us to the other cities, we are considered rural, and my time's up. I apologize.
Okay. So at this round, we're going to start with Charlene Fernandez. If you were to be elected, where would you rely on to get information to make the decisions important for your district?
When I'm elected, I will work with our community leaders and the people and the constituents of District 4. I think it's important that decisions and the way you vote, obviously you have to listen to what's going on and test your conscience and see how you should vote. But more importantly, you need to look at your district and what kind of people you're representing out in your district. So I would rely on community leaders and the residents of District 4.
Okay. I'll ask the same question to Lisa Otondo.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Okay, so the question is, if you were to be elected, who will you rely on to get information to help you make decisions for the people you're representing in District 4?
Well, I think when you're working in the legislature, it's not just who. There are many groups you have to pull from. Now, if you look at something like the KAWC Foundation that just came out with Kids Count, really, really important information that ranks Arizona. You know, it's not just the constituents you want to talk to. It's not just the leaders of the community, but there's very important information that is put out there by nonprofit organizations, by foundations. We have to look at those statistics. We have to look at our ranking to see what our legislature is actually doing in their ranking of their own priorities. A lot of this information truly shows who we are as a state. And if we want to better ourselves, if we want to better the situation for the children, for public education, for medical access, we have to know how we are doing comparatively across the board and what our spending is actually comparatively. So I think it's not only speaking to leaders, but to nonprofit organizations and to foundations that provide quality information. Thank you.
Thank you. Juan Carlos Escamilla, if you were elected, who would you rely on and where would you rely on getting information to make the decisions important and relevant to the people of your district?
Well, I believe working very closely, as I have with the municipal governments, I believe the local governments are the ones that are closest to the people, and those agencies that reach out and assist those individuals that are most needed in certain type of services. I will continue working with those organizations. I will continue working with those small rural communities and advocate on their behalf on the needs that we need for Arizona.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'd like to remind you in this next round that you do have 90 seconds to answer the question, so divvy your time up as you will. I'm going to go with Juan Carlos to begin this question. And the question is, last year, 23% of third graders throughout the state failed the Ames reading test. If you were elected, what would you do to support and to improve the reading success of students in Arizona?
I believe the Ames is a tool for us to improve the education of our kids. We should be able to teach them, not show them how to take a test. So we need to make sure that that we're teaching our children, especially for rural Arizonas that have English is not their first language spoken. We need to be able to assist those schools so there could be programs so they could actually be able to take those tests and be able to improve their education through their process and through the years.
Okay. Charlene Fernandez, would you like me to repeat the question?
No. With a statistic of 23% of third graders failing the Ames reading test, it tells us that we need to start capturing that youth at an earlier age. And this would be a clear example of why, full day kindergarten is warranted in this district and in our state.
Thank you. Lisa Otondo, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please, repeat
Okay.
the question.
Last year, 23% of third graders throughout the state failed the Ames reading test. If you were elected, what would you do to improve reading success for students in Arizona?
Well, there are a lot of things we can do. And first of all, funding really matters when it comes to public education. We fired some 6,000 teachers, and we need to put our money where our mouth is. Of course, preschool education is extremely important. Right now, I think we rank 49th in allowing preschooling accessible to our children. Class size is very important. Also, we need to give, there's one other thing I wanted to say. By fourth grade right now, Arizona ranks very low in fourth grade reading, passing reading, excuse me. We're in the 74% of our fourth graders cannot read at the proper level. So if we don't put our money where our mouth is, then we're not going to have an educated workforce in our future.
Okay, so we've concluded this round where we were having 90 seconds. Now we're going to go into the very short answer, yes, no, or very short answers. You have 20 seconds to answer these questions. I'll ask 3 questions in this speed round. And in this round, we're going to start with Lisa Otondo. The first question that I'm asking is name an issue in which you have a particular expertise.
Education. I'm the only teacher here.
Okay. Charlene Fernandez.
Education. My degree is in elementary education. I am a teacher.
Juan Carlos Escamilla.
Local government.
Okay.
I know
Thank
it's
you.
in education.
Is the state budget for K through 12 education too high, too low, or just about right? And we'll start with Charlene for this round.
Definitely too low.
Juan
Can you
Carlos.
repeat the question, please?
Do you believe that the state budget for K through 12 education is too high, too low, or just about right?
Very low.
Lisa?
Too low.
Okay, and so with the final question, I will go ahead and start with Juan Carlos. Name 2 adjectives that best describe you.
Humble and hardworking.
Charlene?
Solution-oriented and a little impatient.
Lisa?
Accessible and dedicated.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now in this next portion, we're going to have 90 seconds again to respond to each question. I'm going to ask 3 questions from the audience. And this round, we're going to have Lisa Otondo begin the answers. And the first question that we got from the audience is, does the Arizona legislature do a good job at advocating for the poor?
No, they don't. As a matter of fact, with their cuts in access, it's pretty obvious that we're not taking care of our lower income families. I think we need to do more to give people in difficult situations a hand up. And I'm not talking about a handout.
Okay. Charlene Fernandez.
Definitely, they're not working in sync with the working poor. Right now, our state legislature, they're very proud of the cuts that they've made across the board, such as to DES and other agencies. And what they've done is they've hurt our working poor, our working families. When you cut these agencies of many of their resources, it trickles down to the families themselves. So that's a big issue. We need to look at the top tier and how the cuts are affecting the top tier of agencies such as the Department of Economic Security.
Okay. And Juan Carlos Escamilla?
Can you repeat that question again?
Yes. The question is, do you believe that the Arizona legislature is doing a good job advocating for the poor?
I would have to say that most of our legislators haven't been to the poor areas. Most of our legislators have not even left the larger cities and forget the smaller communities where are the most poor people. So I think, yes, I do believe that they've forgotten the poor.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to start the next round with Charlene Fernandez. Again, we're asking audience questions, and we have 90 seconds to answer these questions. The next question is, Charlene, what is your position on voter ID laws to ascertain that only confirmed citizens register and only confirmed citizens cast a vote according to Arizona law?
Actually, I'm against voter ID laws because I think it causes apathy within voters. I think it's they haven't established what kind of ID they would require. Many of you in the last week received a voter identification card in the mail. If you take that to your polling place, that is not the voter ID that they will need. They will also need something with a picture on it. So I think they need to decide what kind of voter ID they require and what they would want us to use. So I am totally against voter ID laws as they are right now.
Okay. Juan Carlos Escamilla?
I think there is voter IDs. I mean, I've participated in elections, and I've seen where, especially for San Luis, where their residents don't have mail at their home, so their IDs could have their P.O. box. But when they show up to go to vote, it has a P.O. box address, but they're registered on the physical address. So that individual, his Arizona driver license is not valid to be able to vote because it has a P.O. box on it. So now that individual needs to go home, if he comes home, because he's already waited 30 minutes to vote, which disencourages them to return and vote. So I believe it really needs to be looked into to encourage more participations to vote.
Okay, and Lisa?
I think it's voter distraction. I mean, all of us know that you can vote by mail and you don't have to show an ID. Even a member of Mitt Romney's campaign said that this was being used in order to have less Democrats vote. Now, I think it's something important that when you look at the difference between a federal form when you go to register to vote and you look at the Arizona state form, they're different. When you put your federal form in and you fill it out, you're not required to put some of the information that you are on a state form. And asking for an ID when you go to vote is exactly opposite of what you're doing if you're voting by mail. So I think when you register to vote, you are already identified by your last 4 digits as your Social Security number, and you're checked out through the federal process.
Thank you. In this question, I'm going to start with Juan Carlos Escamilla. This is the last of the audience questions that we're going to ask in this round. And again, you have 90 seconds to answer. How do you foresee being able to assist community health centers in Arizona?
Well, I'm the chairman of the San Luis Walk-In Clinic for the last 3 years, and I believe in these organizations that are closer to the people to be able to provide affordable health care for those individuals. So I strongly believe that we should be working closer to clinics like the Regional Center for Border Health, the Sunset Community Center, that are agencies that provide those type of services.
Thank you. Lisa Otondo?
I think if we want to talk about monies to healthcare services such as Sunset Healthcare, community healthcare, we have to look at the tax code in Arizona. We have to get it right and decide where our priorities are. Right now, there's a complete imbalance between the revenue, the taxes coming in, and the spending. Okay, and the cuts that are being made. We need to reevaluate our tax code, and it's very possible for the money to be there so that we can assist some of the healthcare issues and community centers. The money is there as long as we get the revenues in. We need to readjust and reevaluate the tax code in Arizona.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go back to one more speed round.
Oh, you forgot Charlene.
Oh, I'm sorry, Charlene. I'm sorry. Charlene Fernandez.
She's ready.
I think what's really important is that we help build collaborations between a lot of these community health centers and our hospital, especially in an area such as Yuma that only has one hospital. For many of the residents of Yuma County, and I realize we are representing District 4 and there's a lot of other areas, but I think the makeup of these areas, they're a lot like Yuma County. We have one major hospital. We should be working in collaboration with them, with our community centers. For a lot of the residents, as I began earlier, a lot of our residents, the only health care provider that they may find would be at a health care center. So we should do whatever we can to establish relationships and collaborations with our hospitals.
Thank you. I'll have Charlene answer the first question in the speed round. Again, the speed round, you have 20 seconds to answer a question, and I'm going to start with the question, what are Arizona's or District 4's 2 greatest assets?
District 4's 2 greatest assets. Well, based on the fact that we're pretty rural, I would say our farmland and definitely our climate.
Thank you. Lisa Otondo, what are the greatest assets of District 4 or Arizona?
Well, I have to agree with Charlene. Agriculture is a $10.3 billion enterprise, in Arizona. So it's very important that we allow our farmers to remain competitive, especially since they provide so much more employment in other areas, whether it's machinery or everything else that comes along with ag. So I would say our farmland. With that, our farmland and our water, very important. And then it's our people, our human resource. Is extremely important. We have hardworking people here that still do need opportunities, and I'm red. Oh, there you go.
Thank you. And Juan Carlos Escamilla, what are the 2 greatest assets of District 4 or the state of Arizona?
I believe the 2 greatest assets for District number 4 is its people and its region where we're at. It covers 75% of the border. We have 3 borders in our district, and we need to capitalize on that for logistic and economic purposes so we could create jobs for our region.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to start with Juan Carlos in this round, and we'll just move this way. So Juan Carlos, what would you like Arizona to be known for?
I don't know. I would have to say, the people. I mean, I think that's why I'm still here in Arizona. Not to say anything about other states or where I was born, but I love this state, and I think it's because of the people, the culture, diversity that we have, and so that's me.
Thank you. Charlene?
Quality schools, quality education.
Thank you. And Lisa Otondo?
You know, there was a time when I was growing up that we had Arizona Highway magazine. We took pride in our parks, we took pride in our schools, and we took pride in the fact that we helped lower income families. I would like to get back to that Arizona, because right now our image has changed.
Thank you. At this time, we have exhausted our questions, but you do each have 2 minutes to give your closing statements. We have some more audience questions? Well, I guess I could ask some audience questions.
These lightning rounds are heart pounding. It's like, a
Okay.
little stressful.
Well, I will, like I said before, we will not have time to get to all audience questions, but we will take as much time as we can, and we will provide you with all of the audience questions so that you can answer those at your leisure. Okay. I'll go ahead and start with Lisa Otondo. In what ways do you involve the community to inform the decisions that you take in the state legislature, that you would take in the state legislature?
You know, we live in a really interesting time. We have access to all kinds of technologies, whether it's tweet, Facebook, the internet, you know, and being able to have access to the community in those forms is really important. Now, Gabby Gifford also did something great. Unfortunately, a tragedy occurred when she was doing her gatherings at the supermarket in Tucson. But her intention was there, and that is accessibility to the community, and that is being public, having gatherings, and I plan on doing that too. And remember that this legislative district is huge. Buckeye, Ajo, Gila Bend, Tohono O'odham, part of Tucson, Yuma County, both South County and parts of Yuma. So it's accessibility. Really having accessibility to your representative was what I have to offer. Thank you.
Thank you. Charlene Fernandez?
I think the most important way to get in touch with people is that face-to-face contact. And the way you do that, and I did that for over 13 years for 2 members of Congress, and that was actually my job, was to go out into the community and find out exactly how people were feeling, what was going on in the community, what the needs were. So I think that face-to-face contact cannot be replaced by the great technology that we will also utilize, such as, you know, Twitter, Facebook, and the website. You can always go to my website at www.charlenefernandez4house.com. You can also, you know, ask your questions on that site, and I want to continue that practice when I'm elected and for the 2 years that I'm in the legislature.
And Juan Carlos Escamilla.
Definitely the face-to-face contact is very important. First of all, I think you need to be able to, if you represent a district, I think you should be able to go to those rural areas as part of your role as a representative. Working for the U.S. government under the Census Bureau, being a partnership specialist, what we did is work closer with the agencies that are closer to the people, to those agencies that are advocating and talking about the importance of certain issues. So I would work very closely with the Sunset community clinic, the San Luis Walking Clinic, CPAS, and other agencies that are closer to the people and relate that message to them so they could turn around and give that message to the people that we represent.
Thank you. I'm going to start. Did
Oh, I just started the last time.
I'm sorry.
It's either Charlene or
Okay, I was
Carlos.
just consulting the question. So I'm going to start the next round with Liso Tondo.
I think you just started with me last time.
I did,
Yeah.
okay. We'll start with Charlene Fernandez. Okay. Since 2001, people on food stamps has multiplied, and even since 2007, it has gone up more than 40%. What ideas do you have that this number, to decrease this number and help more people become self-sufficient and not dependent on government funding?
The most important thing we can do is offer employment to the underemployed and to the unemployed. And how do you do that? In a depressed time right now, it's been really rough to attract industry or any kind of higher job paying employment into Yuma County and probably to District 4. But as I said, education is the key. And when you have quality education, quality schools, people do want to move into your areas. We have an easier time attracting industry and higher paying jobs. So if the legislature would see fit to fund our schools, fully fund our schools, and also change the methodology in which they fund our schools, I think we would have an easier time of attracting people that want to hire, are underemployed, and are unemployed, and hopefully the food stamp issue will alleviate.
And Juan Carlos.
I think, unfortunately, the food stamp issue is an issue that has obviously been abused. I think the system is there to assist the individuals that are needed for the time being, and unfortunately, for some incidents that happens, the rest of them have to pay for it. So I think the program needs to be looked into as far as making sure that the assistance is going to the people that really need it and not just being taken advantage by the people.
Okay. And Liso Tondo.
Well, there's no doubt that we have some problems here with unemployment and underemployment. So it's definitely important to focus on that. And I would just like to reiterate the importance of public education, because poverty is cyclical, meaning that if you live in poverty, it is most likely that your children will live in poverty. And what can truly change and break that cycle is education. And so in order to break the cycle, we have to really lift up the quality of public education and fund it so that our children can have an opportunity and be competitive. Because right now, going into the 21st century, technology is changing, life is changing, and if we do not allow everyone to have the equal opportunity to compete, we're going to have even greater poverty. It's about equality and equality of education and making sure that everybody has quality public education. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go off of that question because the other audience question asks something very similar to that. It says, what can be done to improve the quality of education in this District 4? And we'll start with Juan Carlos.
Well, speaking to our superintendent in my community, some of the challenges that we have, or the challenges that they face, is when it comes to the bonding capacity. The rural districts don't have as much businesses as some of the larger communities, and schools gets their funding on property taxes. So if you have more businesses paying more into the pool, it makes it a much richer district than a poorer district that cannot get those funding. So there needs to be some type of gap filler between those, and I believe that is one way of assisting the schools that are overpopulated, to making sure that they get the proper infrastructure to make sure that they got the adequate class sizes. And obviously retaining our teachers, because it is very hard for rural Arizonas to retain our teachers. A lot of times we lose them to bigger districts, we lose them to bigger communities, and we need to be able to attract and retain good qualified teachers.
Lisa Otondo?
Okay, I'm the only one on this panel that has actually worked in a classroom. Arizona certified teacher. And I will tell you that when I was teaching 8th grade, I had students that were reading from 2nd grade level to 6th grade level. If you do not believe that funding is important in public education, you're extremely wrong. Over $2 billion have been cut from public education in the last 2 years. My classroom sizes were up to 38 students. We have fired over 6,000 teachers. If you want to change public education and bring it up to a higher quality, quit firing teachers. Furthermore, fund it. Fund public education so that we can raise the levels and give the children the education they need. Now, even for soft capital, we're talking about computers and books. The legislature has truly raped the coffers of public education, and we need to put our money where our mouth is. Also, preschool education is extremely important. Right now, in the last 3 years, there was a mandate that all children must be reading proficiently by 3rd grade. It was an unfunded mandate until just this year. You know, if we want our children proficient and competitive, then we have to make the positions for teachers competitive as well. Pay our teachers salaries. Let teachers be respected. Give them the tools they need to teach, the respect they need. I see my time is up. Thank you.
Okay. So, and the next question, we're going...
I haven't answered yet.
Charlene Fernandez.
I have been a school board member for Yuma Union High School District for 8 years. This is my 8th year. I have served as president and vice president of the board. And in those 8 years, I have seen the funding mechanism just change. Right now, we're not getting funding to capacity. That would be the best thing to happen to our school districts throughout this state, is that we were funded to our capacity. But the methodology, as I mentioned earlier, is something else that has tied our hands. A lot of our taxpayers don't understand that when we do receive our funding, we're told how to spend it and where to spend it. No one else but our school districts in different areas would know where the needs are, whether it be in infrastructure, whether it be in textbooks, technology, teacher salary, smaller class sizes that were mandated through the state of Arizona. So I would really plead with the state legislature, number one, is to fund us fully to capacity, and then to change the methodology so that we can use the money the way we see fit.
Okay. We'll ask the next question to Lisa Otondo. You'll begin. The question is, what are your feelings regarding the issue of abortion?
I'm pro-choice, and I quite honestly believe that the choice, that women have the right to, that this is a private choice between doctors and women, and doctors, women, and their God. I am pro-choice. I don't believe there's room for the government in women's health care issue. So that is my answer. It is a conversation that lies between a woman, a doctor, and her God.
Charlene Fernandez.
I've been endorsed by Planned Parenthood in Arizona's list. I am a pro-choice woman. I feel that this issue is very private and personal, and the government has no business in any discussion between a woman and a doctor.
Juan Carlos Escamilla.
I would have to agree to a certain point to some of the comments were said, but to be honest, I'm more leaning towards pro-life. I believe that we are taking a life when we do that, but it's case by case. I mean, it's really hard to say. I've seen incidents where females were force, and it's just case by case. But I think that's something that's very close to my heart that I would have to really consider. So I want to be honest to you, and I would have to think about that very closely. I'm not endorsed by any other agency being pro something. I'm more pro-life than pro option.
Thank you. The next question, we'll start with Charlene Fernandez. We're going to talk about the issue of domestic violence. Do you believe that the current laws in place adequately provide safety for survivors of domestic violence, and how would you vote to strengthen these laws?
I think right now, the laws as they are need to be looked at because we do see a high incidence of domestic violence. And I do believe that we just need to look at the issues behind domestic violence. What would I do? As a legislator, I would definitely do whatever I could to make sure that there is money appropriated to people that face this issue, whether it be before, like some kind of family planning, marital counseling, child counseling, and then afterwards, if there was this incident, that there would be shelters for women and children to go to.
Juan Carlos Escamilla.
I've sat on the I sit on the board for Amberley's Place, and as a leader in my community, as a mayor, I've never thought that was an issue. And when we first opened our first door for Amberley's Place in San Luis, Arizona, our numbers and statistics really went off the roof. So it is a issue, especially when it comes during the summertime. We see our numbers digits double. Now, obviously, I think that's because of the unemployment, for the frustration, and unfortunately, that is an issue that we need to deal with. We have established we've established programs to prevent that and to deal with that, but we definitely need the state to be able to support it and continue supporting, so those agencies could actually provide those services and assist in making sure that the help is there for those people or victims of that crime.
And Lisa Otondo.
Well, I think we definitely need to continue supporting victims' rights laws. And I also want to say that this is just another instance of where, you know, for those of us who are not in the legislature and who are sitting back and discussing possibilities to further help abused children, families in these dire situations, this is the kind of instance where we need help from people like the Children's Action Alliance and other groups that come with statistics and come with facts and guide us so that we can help our constituents. Listen, legislatures don't have all of the answers, but what they do have to have are ears, because they have to be able to rely on the foundations and the nonprofit organizations that can bring solutions, that can work with the community, with the legislatures to bring solutions to such problems. Thank you.
Thank you. For the next question, we're going to start with Charlene Fernandez. On the theme of violence in the home, during the past year, the number of reports of child abuse and neglect and the number of children needing foster care has been growing dramatically. At the same time, the number of available foster families has been going down, and thousands of reports have not been investigated on time by Child Protective Services. What should Arizona do to protect children from abuse and neglect?
We have a great responsibility to the children of this state, and I think it's very, very important that we make sure that CPS, Child Protective Services, has the resources that are needed to make sure that every child in this state is taken care of. Currently, we are not funding Child Protective Services to the level that we have been, and that's why we've seen the increase in cases that have not been investigated. We have a tendency to give these to outside sources, and create a bureaucracy for our children. I think it's really important that we fund them fully, number one. And again, let's look at the reason why. We talked about that maybe it is unemployment, but one of the reasons for our statistic tells us one of the reasons for child abuse or maybe even domestic violence in the home is because of drugs. 80% meth. This is one of the issues that can cause child abuse in the home or marital abuse. So I think we need to look at the issues of why this is happening and start working on those issues. We need to think about when we send a child home from the hospital after he's been born, he or she's been born, that we follow up with parents to make sure that these children are taken care of. It's a great responsibility, but this is our next generation, and the greatest resource that the state of Arizona has is our children.
Thank you. Lisa Otondo, same question.
Can you repeat the question again, please?
Sure, absolutely. During the past year, the number of reports of child abuse and neglect and the number of children needing foster care has been growing dramatically. At the same time, the number of available foster families has been going down, and thousands of reports have not been investigated on time by Child Protective Services. What should Arizona do to protect children from abuse and neglect?
Well, I find it very ironic that Child Protective Services funding is getting cut while we're building more private prisons. It seems we have our priorities slightly screwed up here in the state of Arizona. You know, to use Hillary Clinton's words, it does take a community, and some teachers are some of your best eyes to watch what's happening with children. Teachers often report cases of abuse. CPS does need funding, but if our classrooms are smaller too, teachers have a better view on what's happening with each child. And not only in public education, but in various aspects. When access is cut, then there's less, fewer children living in poverty that are also having access to medical services. And many times those are also shown reported through checkups. So I think it's a culmination of factors, and funding CPS is one, and also making sure that children's needs are met on various different levels. Thank you.
Juan Carlos Escamilla.
Back in 2008, both myself and my wife were foster parents. And let me tell you, it's not only it's a challenge for the child to be able to mentally. So it's not just about the CPS officers, but they need to be able to have these children go through some type of rehabilitation, because it is a mental stress for them. And then I believe that those problems could become bigger issues in the future, in the lifetime of this child. So it's very important that we not only fund these agencies, but also making sure that we give the adequate rehab for these children, because it is it could be very difficult for the lives of these little ones. So I think making sure that we fund those agencies properly, not just giving them money to have representatives, but having those classes for those child so they could make sure that they're emotionally addressed.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask one final question, and then we'll go to closing remarks. We're going to go ahead and start with Juan Carlos for this final question. And I'm going to fuse two questions together that were posed by the audience, because these two questions are really more a question for a federal level, but the questions of SB 1070 and the DREAM Act go to the question of whether or not Hispanics are being helped or hurt, or whether there's a question of discrimination, or if there's a question of acceptance by immigrants, especially of Hispanic origin. What is your opinion of these federal action or inaction in support or opposition of Hispanics?
Well, let me tell you, the city of San Luis was one of the 4 cities that countersued the state when the S-1070 came out. And it was not the mere fact because of the law what it had written, but the fact that it was putting burden to our city. Our cities did not have the adequate fundings or staff to really enforce this bill that they wanted to put in place. I think it was something that was thrown to us, and that is not fair for us. So if we want to address this issue, I think we need to make sure that we're all sitting down at the table and discuss it and see what we could actually do to address this issue, because obviously it is an issue that it concerns all Americans. And when it comes to the DREAM Act, I am in favor of the DREAM Act. I believe that that is an investment to our children that eventually will contribute back to our great nation. I have family members that migrated to this great country. My parents migrated to this great country. And now I feel that I'm contributing, and hopefully my children contribute. And if we educate and give these children the opportunity they could be a better person in life, they'll do it for our country.
Charlene Fernandez, what is your opinion of SB 1070 and the DREAM Act?
I can totally understand the frustration that brought about SB 1070, but this is a federal issue. It's an issue that should be handled by the federal government. If we allow something like SB 1070 to take place in Arizona, then every other state in this great nation is going to have their own version of SB 1070. And I think that's wrong. It's one nation under God here. As far as the DREAM Act, I'm proud to say I worked for the member of Congress that was one of the original authors of the DREAM Act, Congressman Ed Pastor, and totally I support the DREAM Act. We supported it then, and we support it now.
And Lizotondo.
Well, SB 1070 didn't really address the problem. The problem that we have with the border has to do with more law enforcement against the cartel. SB 1070 did not address those issues. You know, instead it goes after what I believe to be the working undocumented individual. I would have voted no on SB 1070, and I believe that that was your question, and I'm a supporter of the DREAM Act. Now, as a teacher, I can tell you that I often had parents that weren't coming to my parent-teacher conferences, and now I completely understand why. It's because you've got a massive group of people out there, a lot of them with wonderful educations, that have been living in the United States, saying the Pledge of Allegiance, and hiding in the shadows. I think it's time that we gave these individuals, these young individuals, an opportunity to become Americans. And I also believe that we need comprehensive immigration reform that should be done at the federal level. You know, there's a supremacy clause in the Constitution, and Arizona must understand that we do not reign above the federal government, but as our Constitution of the United States says, that we fall below it. I understand the frustration with Arizonans and the problems that we face. We face a lot of problems with the border, and we should address those with law enforcement and the support of our law enforcement officers.
Thank you. Okay, and now we'll take 2 minutes each to do your closing statements, and we'll start with Lizotondo and we'll move down the line.
I'm Lizotondo. Like I said, I was born and raised in Yuma, Arizona. Bipartisan household, hardworking farm family, wonderful education from Monterey Institute of International Studies. I speak 5 languages. I've lived in 5 countries on 4 continents. I've worked in both the public and private sector. I worked in Washington, D.C. at the Department of Commerce and NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, as an international affairs specialist. I worked for American Airlines. I wrote their training programs and cross-cultural programs. I'm a licensed real estate agent. I've worked in import-export, and I've owned a restaurant. And I've worked as a teacher right here in Yuma, Arizona in the Crane Elementary School District. I'm proud to be a Democrat. I have the time, the education, and the desire to do this job properly. I ask for your vote on August 28th. Please check out my website. Get to know who I am as a person, what I studied, why I studied it, and what I've done with my life. My website is www.otandoforcongress, that's an old one, otandofor4.com. I guess after saying that, I should say that I did run in 2002 for Congress, and like I'm sure all of us, we've been working hard on the campaign. I know all three of us have, and all of us deserve your attention. I apologize for the slip on my website, but we're all excited to see how our votes come out on August 28th, and I do ask for your vote. Otando for 4. Thank you.
My name is Charlene Fernandez. I want to talk a little bit about my endorsements because my endorsements really tell you who I am. I've been endorsed by the AFL-CIO, the CWA, and the IBEW. And what was cited in their letters of endorsement was my commitment to working families. They understood my commitment to working families for the past 18 years. I was also endorsed by the AEA Education, and that endorsement was because of my commitment to education in Yuma County. I was also endorsed by the Nurses Association. That endorsement was because of my commitment to school nurses and health care for students in our school district. I feel like I've been preparing for this day since I registered as a Democrat in 1973 as a senior at Yuma High School here in Yuma. I've worked on several campaigns, have been active in the local Democratic Party here, serving as the treasurer, secretary, second vice chair, first vice chair, and then chairman of the Democratic Party. I was also vice chair of the Arizona Democratic Party and a superdelegate to the National Convention in 2008. I've been waiting for this day. I waited until my children were grown up, until they received their education in the public schools in Yuma County and attended universities in Arizona. All three graduated from Arizona universities, Arizona State University and Northern Arizona University. I am also a graduate of Northern Arizona University. I was a non-traditional student, meaning I went back to school after I was married and I had my 3 children. I knew how important education was, and I know it was getting me ready for this day. I hope that you vote for me. Early ballots go out this Friday. Remember to mark Charlene Fernandez for state rep. If you go to the polls on August 28th, vote Charlene Fernandez. Thank you very much.
Juan Carlos.
Thank you. I am Juan Carlos Escamilla, and I would like to thank the Children Action Alliance for organizing this event and thanking the audience for sticking around. I know it's a Monday and it's late, but I do appreciate your presence. And don't speak 5 languages, but I do want to be able to tell you that I am just like you. I'm a person that is tired of our representatives that come and ask for our votes and never come and ask for and give us the support that we need. I'm willing to fight for you, to represent you, work hard for you. I ask for your vote this August 28th. This is a primary election. There won't be generals for us 3 here. So I ask for you to vote for Juan Carlos Escamilla, a choice that you would have, a choice that will be able to say that you're voting for a person just like you, a person that wants to be representative in our capital. Vote for Juan Carlos Escamilla. Thank you.
I would like to at this time thank Juan Carlos Escamilla, Charlene Fernandez, and Lisa Otondo for participating and for running here for Legislative District 4. I'd also like to thank Russ Jones for participating in our first session. I'd like to thank all of the audience for coming and participating tonight, asking your question, sending your tweets, and I'd like to remind you, please make sure that you are registered to vote in the primary election on August 28th, very next month, starting very soon. If you are not registered, you can do so online, or you can grab a registration ballot. You can grab your registration in the hallway. Thank you very much for coming.